Welcome back for lesson 3 in our first module, talking all things regulation. We are going to move on now and talk about sensory needs. Now, as you know, I am a speech language pathologist. I am not an OT. So this is going to be an overview of things that I have learned. At the end of everything, I'll give you all my resources for all the people that are way smarter than me, that know way more in-depth coverage. If this is an area you really want to explore and look into in a deeper dive. So we are going to look into all the different sensory type profiles, but first we need to talk about the senses. So we all hear senses and think of the basic 5, but there are actually more. There is one called proprioception, which is our ability to know where we are in space. So I have worked with a bunch of kids who kind of are all over the place and they're floppy. They have really poor proprioception skills. Their sight, smell, taste, hearing, and touch might be fine, but their proprioception is diminished because they don't know where they are in space with their body. They're kind of the clumsy ones, bumping into things. So that's an area that we need to be aware of when we think about the different profile types. There is also a sense called interoception, which is when you can feel what's going on inside your body and you know kind of what different feelings represent. This comes into play huge with potty training. I have had so many parents say, I want to potty train my child. They're ready. He might not be ready. If they don't have those interoception skills and awareness that they need to go, they're not ready, no matter their age or developmental level. They really just might not be ready yet because they can't feel the sensations in their body. So like I said, definitely stuff to talk with your occupational therapist or different people on your team with your more individualized needs of your child. But it's important to be aware of, because if you have a student or a child that is really clumsy and keeps knocking things over at home, it might not be that they can control it. Now, there are things, that's why we have wonderful occupational therapists out there that they can do to help your specific child, but it might make you take a step back, like, oh, they're not trying to be bad. They're not trying to make my house a disaster. It's really, they don't know where their body is in space. There is also a lot out there. There's something called synesthesia, where people can see sounds as colors. I literally had to write it down, or see something and immediately have a smell. We've all kind of had that, where if you smell something, it'll bring you back to a time or bring up a memory, but they can literally like see something and have a different smell based on things. Like I said, this is not necessarily my area of expertise, but there's so much literature out there and so many people that can give you valuable information about stuff that literally blows my mind. Like, I can't imagine being able to see or hear something when I see a color. Like, I just can't wrap my brain around it. But those things might be going on in your child's brain and body that really impact them. So the more you're aware of it, the more you can do that deep dive to find that individualized information you need for your child. So, some sensory profiles. We have seekers. These are the kids that are usually getting in trouble because they are extremely busy. They're looking for input. They might be eating limes around because they need even big senses in their taste receptors. So a seeker is somebody who is jumping, pushing. This might be, they might have problems with that proprioception because they're in constant motion. So I am a seeker. I know that. So I need to be aware of what I am as much as I'm aware of what the child I'm working with is, because I might need to shift what I'm doing to help them. So seekers want the heavy input. They want deep pressure, those really deep hugs that we love when kids want those, because it really gives them what they need to keep them calm and regulated and at baseline. So if I'm with a seeker, and I'm a seeker also. So we got a child who's a seeker and Maggie who's a seeker. I need to calm myself down because we're going to exhaust each other working together. I need to do things like a swing, some calming music, maybe some pressure. There are vests that you can get, weighted vests, to really help give that deep pressure and input. An occupational therapist can help you with that. But you really need to see if you're with a seeker and then you're going to also bring that high energy. I play tag all the time with my students, but then after about 5 minutes, I need to calm them down and wind them down so they can be at their optimal level of learning. So then we move on to avoiders. So is your child an avoider? They might be covering their ears. These are the kids that need the tags off. They notice things and immediately retreat. This might be something with a lot of kids that are picky eaters, are avoiders when it comes to food. They won't even look at it. They don't want it near them for whatever reason. I worked with a student once who could not eat anything that was the color red. So if there was an apple in the room, it might set him off because that really bothered him so much. And we had to do a lot of work to figure out why and to figure out ways around that. So we need to, with our avoiders, set up an environment where they feel safe. And then I'm going to try to bring up the energy to kind of help them get more involved in the activity, to make it really fun and really exciting, and hopefully get them to notice and want to be part of that. So the most important thing always is to make your child feel safe. So if you know they're an avoider and they hate loud noises, if you're going to fireworks, because that's really important to your family and you want them to be a part of that, definitely bring headphones. Definitely bring things that you can set up the environment to help them feel safe and ready to be at the level where they will be calm and regulated. Then we have the bystanders. These students appear easier, but they might be missing things. So really, these are our kind of quiet kiddos, just go with the flow, and we might not always know what is going on in their brain. So we might need to bring different sensory play in to kind of teach them new ways of engaging in the world. They might appear to be listening, but really they miss things because they were just kind of focused on something else and not concentrating on what they were supposed to be concentrating on. They're a little bit easier than the seekers in the sense that they're not so busy, but they're also a little harder to engage. Then we have the sensors. These are our very picky kids that also notice everything. You might have a sensor with food too, but they notice everything. I have a student who every day, if I'm at work, my hair is in a bun every day or back in a ponytail. And one day I wore my hair down and this student could not handle it. He was like, no, Miss Maggie, no, because it was such a difference for him. I still don't know if it was he was counting my hairs or he didn't like the color or what was so important to him, but it set off an alarm for him. So these are the kids that we also want to really look around the environment and see what might be different than it normally is. If you wear glasses and then you don't one day, the sensor might have a really hard time paying attention to you because they're noticing all the stuff on your face that they don't usually see because usually you have on the glasses. So really think about your child because they might be a seeker in one thing and then a complete avoider in another sense. So they might be an avoider when it comes to taste, but a sensor when it comes to sounds. And if there is a fan buzzing in the background, that might really bother them. So you want to look at the different senses and think about which category would your child fall in, and then how can you best set up the environment to support them. Like I said, not 100% my area of expertise. This is an area I really want to learn more about because I think it's crucial to helping kids be regulated and understand what's going on in their environment. So this is the hand-brain model. kind of doesn't go here, but I really wanted to fit it in somewhere in module 1 because we're going to talk about it later. So if you think of your hand like a brainstem, and your wrist is kind of the brainstem, and this connects your breathing and all your bodily function that you need to do. And then in the middle, your thumb is your amygdala. And your amygdala is your command center in your brain. This is where we get our fight or flight reactions. And then when you put your hands over, this is your prefrontal cortex. This is important for all your meaningful thoughts, your actions, and really what we think of the higher level brain. Sometimes we call this the upstairs brain and this the downstairs brain. And so this will really manage our emotions and our thoughts and help us. So if something happens where our lid gets flipped, this is where the whole flipping the lid quote comes from. But if something happens, for example, if an avoider all of a sudden hears a really loud noise, he is going to flip his lid, and now this is no longer available. He cannot have meaningful thoughts, meaningful actions, because he's completely now running from the amygdala and the brainstem. So this is sensing fight or flight, which we will talk more about with behaviors. But this is important to understand because something little and you're like, oh, it's just the lawnmower. The neighbor will stop it in a minute. Not a big deal. It is, because it's sensed flight. It's put into action, this flight or fight mode for your child. And now they cannot access their upper brain. So this is when we're going to see the behaviors. I put this in here now because it's really important that if you understand the sensory impacts that are around your child every day, think of all the things we hear of, even driving in a car, music on, car horn, people talking, stoplights, the wind coming from an open window. All that is a lot of sensation coming at your child. So then all of a sudden when they get to where you're going and their lid is flipped because it was too hot and all those things were coming at them the whole car ride, it might not be that they don't want to go. It might be that we need to take a step back and really support their senses. So that's just one example. I did not make up this upstairs downstairs brain. I really wish I did, but it was by Dr. Dan Siegel. And there is a lot of research on there. And so that is another great resource that you can look into if this really resonates with you and you think this is what's happening to your child. I said, again, we'll talk about behaviors in module 4, but I think it's really important for you to understand kind of how these sensory issues really are important to regulate your child, to keep them at baseline, optimal level of connecting with you at home, and think of ways that you can set up the environment. Like I said, can't do it all the time, but where you can set up an environment that supports that. If you know that the neighbor always mows his lawn on Sunday mornings, get those headphones ready and put them on and say, uh-oh, Mr. John's mowing his lawn. Let's get ready for that loud noise that's coming, and kind of give them that warning. We do that a lot at school when we have to do fire drills because it is such a difficult, loud, obnoxious sound for these children. And if they can't handle it, we can do something to try and support them when we know it's going to be difficult. We can't take it away because we need to do our fire drills, but we can support. And that's what you want to be doing at home, is trying to find ways to support. So you did it. We did module 1, regulation, all done. I hope you've learned a bunch of new ideas and new ways to think about all the stuff going inside your body and all the stuff potentially going inside your child's body to start and make a more supportive environment for you and your child. I will see you next in module 2, where we will talk all things language. Bye for now.